Welcome. My name is Lorenz. This is System Self, and today we're talking about leading from the emerging future. This is a phrase coined by Professor Otto Scharmer from MIT, and it refers to a process of tuning into what wants to emerge. But what does this mean, what wants to emerge, and how do you tune into it? Let's say you're an entrepreneur, and as an entrepreneur, life can be challenging. You're constantly having to deal with demands on your time and never-ending to-do list, figuring out how to sell something or market something, and then balancing your time between family, friends, personal life, social life. It's never-ending, and it's hard. It's hard to be an entrepreneur, not to mention that there is a never-ending stream of information coming at you, whether it's books to read or articles to review or something to figure out how to do right, and then all the distractions of social media. It's hard to make decisions when there are so many things to decide between. So how do you navigate that territory with some sort of balance and harmony, and most importantly, intelligence? This is where this concept of leading from the emerging future can help to shift the orientation from one that is outwardly focused to one that is inwardly focused, really tapping into a certain internal intuition. I like the metaphor of a sailing boat, and you can imagine that there's wind, and if you know which way the wind is blowing and you know how to work with that wind, well, then you can get to where you want to go. But if you don't know which way the wind is blowing, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get to where you want to go. So similarly, you can think of life as having a certain emergent property. Things are always emerging, and that emergence has a certain newness to it. So by definition, if something is new, there's an unfamiliarity with it, right? There's a possibility of confusion because you are inherently figuring out something new with everything that is emerging. And when you can recognize that, everything around you is ultimately emerging in a new way, and that if you can tune into that, then maybe you can really tap into the energy behind that, become aware of where the energy is around you in a situation that you might be working on, whether it's a business or a project, really becoming aware of where is the energy here, where is the acupuncture point that, if properly focused on, can give a lot of forward momentum to that situation. One of my favorite stories is that of Joan of Arc. This is a 15-year-old French peasant girl who ultimately helped lead the armies of France to victory against the British in the 100-year-long war. At that time, France and England had been at war for many generations, and France was losing badly. They were on the brink of collapse. Joan had a vision that she would lead the French army to victory, and somehow she managed to get an audience with the French king, who, desperate as he was, allowed her to accompany the army to the Battle of Orleans. There, 9 days later, the army wins one of its first victories in decades, and they go on to win a succession of battles with Joan accompanying them. And many of the soldiers attributed their success to Joan's presence. So let's look at this through the lens of this idea of leading from the emerging future. You could say that something wanted to emerge here, the French victory, but it needed a catalyst. Something had to insert itself to change that situation. At that point, the army was completely demoralized. All the leadership and generals were tried and had failed. And only a 15-year-old girl, if you really think about this, right? Only a 15-year-old girl with her youthful optimism and unshakable belief in victory could galvanize these troops to victory. So this is one of the ideas that's really at the heart of this concept of emergence, is that when you enter it, there is something unique that you bring, that only you can bring, whether it's particular insight, understanding, or experience that can enable that emergence to happen, right? What is it that you bring that enables the situation to happen? So it's a co-creative process. There's something that wants to emerge, and there's something that you bring to really enable that emergence. There's a very profound dialogue that occurs later after Joan is captured by the English and she's put on trial for heresy, and her inquisitor asks her, "Did you know that you were in God's grace?" Now, this is a trick question because according to church doctrine, you can never be certain of being in God's grace. And Joan's response is profound. She says, "If I am not, may God put me there, and if I am, may God keep me so." This speaks to the heart of leading from the emerging future, a relationship with uncertainty, with not knowing. She's not saying, "Yes, I am right. This is exactly how things should be." She's saying, "I actually don't know. And if I'm wrong, then please guide me there. And if I'm right, then let me know." There's an openness. There's a beautiful expression which says to be wholehearted and half sure. And it very much speaks to this kind of openness. Of course, if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to win your battle, you're trying to bring something new into the world, whether it's a business or a project, that can be so challenging. And you need to be headstrong and believe in your vision at some level. And on the other hand, you need to have a certain openness, a flexibility, and a willingness to be changed and to learn based on what's happening. There's a relationship there. If you don't have that willingness to really learn and to embrace uncertainty, then it can actually make things much more challenging. It can prevent you from seeing certain opportunities and being able to work with those. And this is the heart of leading from the emerging future, is tuning in to those subtle opportunities, to the subtle things that might be emerging in a situation, that when given the right catalyst, when you insert yourself in the right way, can create an unexpected or radically new outcome. So Otto Scharmer has a process called Theory U that specifically revolves around working with this kind of orientation, and it's very basic and really revolves around stillness. So the first part is to really observe. So you get to know a situation by directly being involved with it. Get your feet on the ground, and then take stillness. This is really the heart of the process, is that many times we're so focused outwardly around, like, all the data and all the information, all the things that need to get done. But taking that time to go inwardly, to observe the internal response to the external situation and use that to inform your decision making. This is where the intelligence comes in, when you can really take a few moments, and you don't need anything fancy for this. You don't need to light a candle and set up a meditation cushion and make your nice space. You can literally do this at your desk. Just close your eyes. Nobody needs to know. Take 2 or 3 minutes just to tune in. What's coming up for you? What thoughts, what feelings, what sensations? Maybe you're feeling some sort of tension somewhere. But just by bringing awareness to that, and inevitably something often comes up, something that really draws your awareness and your energy. And many times that gives you a sense of directionality. You might not have your 6-month plan, but it can really give you a strong sense of where your attention and energy needs to go next. And this is the most important part, is really tuning into that directionality of where does a situation want to go. There's another great body of work that I really recommend called Lean Startup. If you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. It was very profound for me in my own entrepreneurial journey. And it revolves around a process called validated learning. This is this idea that the entrepreneurial process is a continual experience of learning. And you begin by creating a hypothesis. That hypothesis might be that somebody wants your product, or somebody wants your service, or whatever you're creating. And once you have that, you figure out the simplest possible way to test that. So you go out into the world and you test it. Before you invest in all this marketing and sales and product development or whatever, you find very, very simple ways to test it, to get data to inform your further and iterative development of whatever you're doing. This is very similar to the Theory U process, except what we're doing is we're inserting stillness into that. So you have a particular hypothesis, you have an idea about something that you're creating, you're building a business. Now you go out and you actually get involved. So it's not just in your head, but you bring that and you put it into the world in the simplest possible way so that you can get real world data on whatever you're trying to create in the world. But in that process, you take some stillness. You take a few moments here and there to really tune into the internal response. It's so easy to get caught up in all the busyness and the never-ending responsibilities that are involved in creating something new. So you take that time, just a little bit, 2 or 3 moments, deep breaths, relax into it and tune in. You know, it's important to understand that this is not an unproductive process. We live in a society where we're obsessed with productivity and effectiveness, and this is an extremely productive and, most importantly, effective process because it can help you focus in on what is the most important thing. Where can you really apply your energy to move something forward? How do you tune into a situation to understand the many dynamics, the many things going on, and then bring intelligence to that? So this is leading from the emerging future, tuning into what is emerging by using your body as an instrument, by using your being as an instrument, right? Not just your mind, your whole being. So you're tuning into that, you're taking a few moments of stillness, bringing awareness to what wants to emerge. What is that next action step that you can take to move things forward? And when you tune into that, that's what you're leading from, right? So that's the leading part. You're tuning into what is emerging, and then you're leading from what wants to emerge. You're leading from the emerging future. All right, my friends, please do me a favor. Share this video with a friend. If you know anybody who's feeling overwhelmed or overworked and needs to take just a moment or two to tune in, please share this video with them. And of course, subscribe to the channel to be informed of my next videos. This is System Self, where we explore awareness of the self and the systems that we operate in. My name is Lorenz. I'm so grateful for your presence. Much love.